Nice. And then in terms of what was your thought on the bass? What were your thoughts on the bass? Because what was surprising to me is that it's a ribbon, and they're not really well known for bass delivery, uh, and the headphones crew generally don't like ribbons. I don't think they like any of the raw stuff. So can you speak more about the bass, and what impressed you about the headphone? And is it like, would you say it's the best you've ever heard, or where does it kind of stack up?
Being overly expressive. Um, so they managed to, via the analog EQ tuning, via the enclosure tuning, and I guess via their diaphragm design, really get a super controlled response in a way that a company like Raw just hasn't bothered with. At the end of the day, a transducer is a transducer, and it's all about implementation, and they've really shown that, it doesn't have a ribbon driver doesn't have to sound like this kind of uncontrolled spiky sort of thing like the CA1A did.
Mm.
So I think that was what was most impressive about it, was that really just it really is just kind of in a different category, and it really just defies any expectations of what you think it should sound like.
Nice, nice. Um, Sorry, I'm really sorry, Ev and Gaz. Do you mind just quickly running through your what you liked again, just briefly, just because I think there was just a recording issue. I just fixed it, so it should be good now. Do you mind just Gaz and Ev? Can you just one more time? Just I'm really sorry.
Oh, for gear that I've
Yeah.
liked the Biggie a lot recently.
Mm-hmm.
I've liked my DIY solid state stuff I've been doing with Parker that's around here, the associate, the executive that just released. People are already getting those in, and they're gonna start building those. And I've really enjoyed the tube amps that we've been collabing with Straight Wire. The 6v6 one. We have an upcoming OTL that I'm really excited about. People seem to like his whiskey, which is like a spud amp. Um, they're all really, really, you know, tonally rich, but not being, diffuse or bloated like I hear a lot of tube amps sounding. So I've liked that,
Nice.
and I've gotten into IMs. The Clara is my favorite fit in an IEM ever. It's like almost a custom IEM, and I like the Dita Prelude, and I've messed around with a lot of ear tips, specifically the metal insert ear tips, like the Couriers or the Shanling ear tips. I think Ev has been messing with some of those too. We've
Yeah.
gone through maybe 10 or 20 single DD IEMs recently for fun. Uh,
Yeah, I've been enjoying the Prelude a lot as my like it's probably my most used audio product right now. I'm using it right now. Uh just single dynamic driver IEM that just kind of sounds good, and I'm not really sure why other than just like being pretty eloquently designed. Yeah, at home been using first watt stuff for my mains. I'm pretty happy with those, and the Associate, my preamp. Haven't really made many like changes to my system or been really excited about what I'm listening to other than those lately and some prototypes that I've been working on that maybe we'll talk more about in a bit.
Sweet.
The buff, yeah. Um, hmm, how to characterize it? I didn't really A/B it to be honest. Like when I got it, I unboxed it, and I put it in. I just thought it sounded like a little bit better than before. I mean, it was like all solid state, my whole chain start to finish before. I dropping a tube in there just like gave it a little bit more color. Just sounds kind of sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it didn't really like eliminate any bandwidth or give me any like audible distortion that I could identify as distortion. So I don't know. I just thought it sounded the same but a little nicer.
Nice.
And the Eater 2 kind of did that for me too, the DDC. But I had some issues with it, and I sent it to Tom. But yeah, that was nice while I had it.
Speaking of the Eater 2, I just got it actually, just a little while ago
Yeah.
because I was my audio note kit DAC is acting. It's always acts up, and I thought the USB wasn't working on it. It was like on and off, and I thought that it would work better through coax. So, and then the thing is, I have a DI-20HE, and that never works with the ANK. It works fine with my PS direct stream, but it never works with the ANK. So then I did the Eater 2 into the ANK, but it still didn't work. So something's up with my audio note. I have the M4 DAC, but when it does work, man, it sounds awesome. Like it really sounds good. So, but yeah, I like the Eater 2. So far, no issues with it. I think it's slightly sonically slightly better. But what happened with yours, F?
I think there was like a clocking issue or something. I only ever used it with like a Windows PC USB out,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason it just kind of like stopped working one day. And I had it
Gosh.
AES out into the Biggie, so I didn't really put that much effort into diagnosing it. I just kind of set it along and forgot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for a
One,
couple days there, it sounded pretty good.
what's your chain right now at home?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of different ones just because I'm kind of between my little garage office and up here, but I do have something kind of new and interesting for my speaker setup. So I met these guys at the last home entertainment show, Layer Audio Design. It's a couple guys around my age. They make OTL, what is it called? 300B tube speaker slash headphone amps, and I grabbed one off them just because the shell was like a really interesting design that they put together. The build quality is actually just immaculate for what they did. They're using some really nice high quality components. So I have one of those on my speaker setup. This really nice just OTL tube system, and I've been enjoying it a lot. It really brings out a little bit of a different character to my JBL Studio 590s. They don't need a ton of power, so like the 10 watts just kind of works out perfectly for that. And then on the headphone end, I haven't really changed that too much. I've been using my portable players more often actually. So right now on my work setup, I have an RME 80i24 SE. I've had that for a long time because it also acts as my interface for measurements. But most of the time right now, I'm actually back to using my old from like 2020 Walkman ZX300. Because I finally have like because I've been making this new closed back headphone. It's a lot more power efficient than the old ones, so the Wacom can actually drive them perfectly now, and I've just been on that and pretty happily for a while.
Nice. Cool.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Okay, let's get into the topics here. Yeah, I guess the first topic, we probably won't do all of this just to respect everyone's time. I'll try to aim to wrap up at around 7. But the first topic is about objective versus subjective audio. So what I mean by that is, when we talk about objective audio, my view of what that is focusing on things like measurements, frequency response curves, and SYNAD, the famous ASR SYNAD measurements, or signal to noise and distortion, and characterizing audio by focusing on those things versus the subjective side. And then the extreme of that would be somebody like Audio Science Review and Amir. And then the other side is purely subjective. Like, no, we're not talking about frequency response measurements, more just describing what the sound is like and how maybe the emotion it evokes, or how does the staging sound and things like that. And then you can get very, very poetic and extreme to the other side. To me, the other extreme is Six Moons, where the way Strudgeon, or I don't know how to say his name, but the way he does his reviews, it's hard to even extract what he's saying, because he's so so verbose and stuff like that. So, and then obviously that's a big spectrum, right? And there's a lot of room in between. So my question is, where do you find that you sit on that spectrum? And also, when you look at a review, is it really important that it's mostly focused on measurement? It's mostly, like, for example, somebody like Aaron, right? Aaron would be like very, very focused on measurement, and he might discuss sound for just a second, subjective sound, what it sounds like to his ear, very briefly, and then just dive into measurements. Versus somebody who focuses on just the subjective side of things, like William Murdoch, or Amplify, Sajid, Amplify. There's a lot of examples. I think Passion for Sound usually doesn't do much, and then of course there's people that do both, right? That they have a blend. So what's your preference? So I guess it's a two-part question. The first part is, what kind of audiophile are you? Like, what's important to you in terms of subjective versus objective? And then what do you look for when you're looking at reviews and you're reading reviews? If you do read reviews, and if reviews are important to you in any way, what do you look for?
You want to go first?
That's a pretty long prompt, so I'm trying to figure out how to strategize what to answer with.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I would say I'm like in between. I'm like a neo objectivist. 'Cause, there's some things that are just subjective only because it's like we don't have all the information, so there's still like unquantifiable variables that we can perceive but can't quite measure, or at least can't figure out how to measure them yet, or they do exist but we just don't realize it. I think companies should be subjective, and I think they are, and I think hobbyists should be objective, and I think they are. I don't think one is better than the other. I think the goals are different. For a brand, company, designer, engineer, they should really focus on getting the most performance possible, whatever metrics that they want to use, I think is acceptable. And for a hobbyist, I think they should look to get the most enjoyment possible. Whatever methods that requires, if it's tubes, if it's upsampling to DSD, if it's using different cables, I think it's all fair game. I don't think everyone has to follow the same guidelines to achieve their goal. I don't think everyone in the audio space is trying to achieve the same goal anyways. Whether you do a YouTube video, whether you write in a blog, whether you go on a forum and you get excited. I think all these different people do not need to exhibit the same character traits because I just don't think that's like inherently human. So like for Sir John, like I love Sir John. I think he's the best writer, right under Art Dudley. Rest in peace. Um, I think a narrative is really important when you're writing. I think that's the whole point of any written content, a review or a book, or uh, because without it, it's just like really boring. Like where is the human in it? Otherwise, we would just have AI write reviews for us, and I don't think anyone really wants to do that. So that's my
Unfortunately, I
opinion.
think there are already AI reviews.
Yeah. There's AI like
Yeah.
conglomerate websites, which is like mega slop, and I guess there's like more famous websites that have converted to all AI. But it's just what is the content there? Is it
Yeah.
useful?
Well, the other thing too is that people are looking at the Google AI because it's just the first thing they see. So even when I talk to my vendors, they're like, "Oh yeah, like people are just coming to us from the AI, like recommending things, or even on my Discord server." And of course, like half the time it's wrong, but like people are taking it seriously, unfortunately.
Yeah, we should go back to monkey or something. I
Yeah,
think
Return to Monkey, I agree.
um as like more boutique people, we're inherently more analog in our domain on the internet, and I think that's kind of like the difference. Not that I think we should be separated from like you know um the big brands or whatever, but we're just different. Like our goals are different, our bottom lines are different, our costs are different. uh, there's just so many differences that I think saying, oh no, there's no differences in everything, and we must compare them like objectively only, I think that's so flawed in so many ways. um,
Yeah, I mean, if you try to apply the same principle to any other hobby, like what makes a car good, what makes a cup of coffee good, what makes a piano sound better than another piano, like it kind of just like starts feeling absurd. But I think there's like a certain audiophile who's kind of like an armchair scientist who thinks that they have data and therefore that makes them like have a glimpse into the truth and the reality of the situation. But I don't know. I think it's healthy to be skeptical, to like accept the data for what it is, contextualize it versus your own experience, and then also like look at it in the context of like the choices that were informed or informing whatever is built into a design or a product that maybe you do or don't want. It's just like one of many things to consider.
Hmm. And then one, I'm not sure. I don't think you weighed in.
I mean, I waited on the AI thing, but
But like
I
objective
guess
versus subjective, what's your like? Where do you stand on that?
like I mean, if I'm looking at reviews, like if I'm looking to make a serious, purchase decision, uh, my priorities change depending on what I'm looking at. So like I don't know, for example, if I'm looking for like a reference monitor, where I want that, like I want something that is, maybe not necessarily correct to everyone's ears, but like, the most well-behaved thing for what I want. Yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at measurements and headphones.com, Arting's reviews, just kind of going over the data because I have an understanding of how to interpret it, and the more data, the better. Um, but of course, at the end of the day, it comes down to how how does this sound, right? Does this sound correct to me? Does this sound like what I expect based on the data? And what kind of variations are we getting that might not have come up in the in the nuances of a review. But then sometimes, I make an emotional purchase where or I get to a point where like I want, I don't want just like a tool. I want something for me. A good example of that was my most recent purchase, which was the JVC SW02. Kind of a beautiful headphone, really weird. Objectively, it is. terrible. The anything from like 1 kilohertz up is just avoid. It is a very strange sounding headphone. It is even weirder than like the first Grell phone. Um, so of course I saw the data. And I was like, okay, well that's I'm gonna go ahead and ignore that and just look at the subjective impressions. Is this what I want in a headphone? And people are like, yeah, this like presents music differently. This presents stage in a certain way. It's like, okay, I'll pick one up. It's not too expensive. I buy it. I listen to it, and like, yeah, okay, this is an interesting headphone. This gives me enjoyment, in a way that something like an HD 480 Pro wouldn't. And even for certain music, it actually subjectively for me kind of works better. So it always just comes down to like what are my personal priorities, and I think generally speaking in our current market, I think I'm not the only one who does that. But again, I don't really see it as like an either or thing, as long as at the end of the day, you're actually sitting down and listening to the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm more on the subjective side for sure. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the objective side to things. And I sometimes I do look at graphs too, and it's interesting to look at I kind of initially looking at what someone thinks about something subjectively and how they thought it sounded, and then looking at a graph after. I find that a bit interesting. And I find that in the two channel world, you tend to get more subjectivists. If you go in two channel communities, the dominant communities like AudioGone and stuff like that, uh, it seems to be more people, and I think that part of the reason is that everybody has a different room, so you don't have the luxury of a headphone where you have a similar pad. I know obviously there's pad rolling. Obviously ZMF has like 9,000 pads, but I mean if you order a certain headphone, it comes with a certain pad, and most likely a lot of people who own that headphone are probably going to use the stock pad. And some headphones are not even built to pad roll, and so you have kind of that pseudo fixed room, whereas in two channel you don't have that. And so I find that I tend to see when I look, I'm involved in all both sides of the coin in terms of two channel and headphones, and I tend to see a lot more objectivists in the headphone realm. But regardless, yeah, my focus is more on the subjective side of things. I like finding reviewers that are interesting. I like watching reviews for entertainment as well, or reading reviews for entertainment, and when they convey their emotion to me, I just enjoy that. So yeah, there's a lot of cool reviewers I like Tyler, and Marcello's good, and William Murdoch is one of my favorites. He's really cool. At the end of the day, you got to listen to something yourself and then and like it before buying, ideally. And I use reviews to kind of inform me in terms of what I should try to listen to. So yeah, but yeah, it's interesting, that divide and where everybody lands. Uh, but yeah, like at the end of the day, you have to enjoy what you're listening to. That's the struggle I have with people who are, very very far onto one side, well, far into the objective side, like ESR kind of people. I'm not to denigrate people, but when you describe something sounding good, or you say, hey, the bass was very full, or if you say the stage was good, then they immediately say, well, what does that mean? Show me measurements. And so I think when we take away, I understand that the language of audio is not perfect, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be used at all, in my opinion. And I think that there are kind of I think that when you listen to somebody describe something for a long enough period of time, then you can often get and understand what they thought about that product. Not everybody, but yeah, I hope I'm not rambling here, but I hope I'm making sense in what I'm saying.
That makes sense to me. oftentimes we talk about that internally, whether that's like phase coherence or channel matching. Often we attribute to high performance. So that's something else that's also not really spoken about in a lot of these measurements.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So the other topic I had, I think we kind of went through we went through CanGen, we went through objective, subjective, and the individual stuff. So I think we can now get into. I don't think Tron's coming. I invited him a few times, but he's not. I don't know what's going on with him. So
he's in here and he raised his hand.
I invited him like so many times. Hold on, let me try again. Yeah, I clicked invite to speak like 4 times, but I'm
sorry.
Oh,
if I
there we
raised
go.
my hand, it was an accident. I have my I got screaming children and stuff
Okay.
right here, so I'm just listening, enjoying the show.
Okay, Tron, can you talk or?
I can't really talk in this.
Okay, all right, no problem,
broadcast.
All right, no worries.
Children.
Okay.
Right, enjoying the show though. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye. So let's
Cheers.
let's go to the company kind of segments, or like the talking about you guys. What's interesting is I think our last show was I think you guys Ev wasn't here, but I think you guys were on for the last show maybe. But anyways, I want to start off.
yeah.
I want to start off with ETA. So Ev and Gaz. I'm using my O2 right now, by the way, while I listen to you. Yeah. So tell me about maybe first of all, for anyone who's listened, like I've shared this on a few communities, so we might get some new people listening who haven't heard of you. Maybe if you could just kind of tell everybody who you are, what your company philosophy is, what you're working on, what you're excited about, any details that you would divulge about ETA that people should know.
Do you want me to go, Ev, or do you want to go?
Go for it.
Well, no. we like to be experimental. We do things that people tell us not to do, not because they're telling us not to do it, but because we want to do it. So we kind of form our own path, develop our own technologies for our use case, which is usually our proprietary drivers that we've been developing for a few years now. Recently, we're near the release of our upcoming flagship, Yuli, which is like the world's only on-eco headphone. That's not the only thing that makes it interesting. It's all acoustic like parameters are fairly interesting and really unconventional. Ev, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a few cues from like the HD800 or Grell OAE in terms of like how it positions the driver a little bit in front of the ear and angles it in the enclosure. And then also it's got a lot of direct leakage, so when you put it on your head, it doesn't create any sealed air volumes, which I feel like enhances its transient response and sense of openness. We tried like a bunch of different iterations of the enclosure with like a complete seal or zero seal, open baffle, whatever. We've been tailoring it like a long time. We're pretty meticulous in the enclosure to eliminate all parallel and perpendicular spaces to kind of like smear modal behaviors in the enclosure, which I think makes it a little bit smoother than some other headphones that have similar design parameters. And yeah, but in general, like ETA, I think my approach to product design is just to kind of like conceptualize about, what if we did this, and then we try it, see if we like it, and then kind of iterate until we get to a place that I'm happy with. But we've never been interested in making kind of like me too products, so experimentation is like pretty core to what we do. And honestly, a big part of why I'm interested in headphones is because I find that when I first got into it, I thought headphones were a pretty flawed way to listening to music. Like I always thought they sounded bad. So that kind of gave me an itch to scratch because I love the experience of listening to headphones, and I kind of want to just like make that the best that it can be, at least to my taste. And hopefully other people like what we're doing and kind of come along for the ride. But yeah.
I just want to share briefly one anecdote.
Did you want to talk about what we have coming up next?
Sorry. I
Yeah.
just want. I just want to. I'm so sorry. I just want to share one anecdote. I jumped in earlier, but I think my I didn't hit the right button. But so on that, Ev, it's really interesting that you say that about how you wanted, like, how headphones to you didn't sound right. Like compare. I'm assuming you mean compared to two channel or live, and then you wanted to, like, improve it. And it's so interesting that you say that because. I felt the exact same way as you. Like whenever I compared, like I loved two channel, and when I had like a decent two channel setup, like, and if I go back to headphones, like there's no comparison to me in the sense that yes, they're different, but to me, just my personal opinion is the two channel is the more immersive, engaging experience because it gives you that sense of a real, like, big stage and that real holographic kind of image and stuff floating in the air if it's done really well. But what's funny is that so lately, like I've been, I'm a huge, massive ETA fan. I have the O2 and Ada, and I have a bunch of ETA headphones. And I got so used to the O2 sound that one day when I didn't listen to my two channel system, my Yamaha NS5000 for a long time. When I went to that, I was like, whoa, this does not, like, it's missing something. It's really missing something that the O2 had. The O2 had this bass and the warmth and this low end fill that the NS5000 system, even with my all Conrad Johnson front end, didn't bring. So I thought that was a huge compliment, or I would take it as a compliment to ETA, that it made me feel like I need to improve my two channel system to kind of rise to the level of that, to try to get that missing quality. But yeah, it just made me think of that anecdote.
Yeah, I will say, when I first got into headphone modding, it was because I was in film school and I thought, if I can mod a pair of headphones to sound like the monitors we had in the studio, then I wouldn't need to compete for studio time. And that actually went horribly, and it made the headphones sound terrible, and it also didn't translate well. But I think over time, like, I've distanced myself from the idea that a good pair of headphones should sound like a good pair of speakers, and now I try to just lean more into what I do like about the headphone listening experience. So I kind of gone 180 on that. But yeah.
Nice. And do you guys want to talk about the Bravo at all, or any of the or Parker's amps that you're teaming up with him? Like, do you want to talk about that at all, or?
We could talk about that after Juan goes.
Okay, sure. One of Auribus Acoustics.
Yeah.
Can you just tell everybody about your company and what you are? Can you talk about your the Sierra, and like, just talk about everything, the new stuff you're working on. Can you talk also about the metal version as well? I'd like to hear about all of that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been a long time since it's really been a long time since we've done one of these.
Yeah.
So yeah, since last time. So well, Auribus Acoustics is a brand started by myself and a couple of college buddies back in the day. I've since graduated, and it's basically just me now. And yeah, I build headphones. I'm an industrial designer, so my passion for the last 6 years or so has just been to build and mod headphones that sound good to me and that I think look cool. The first so I kind of relaunched this brand from like a college product to like a full-time thing back in 2023. As you mentioned, that was the Sierra headphone that I released back then. It was this really big, kind of spacious, reference grade open back, using a cool patented basically onboard EQ system to compensate for bass leakage and for treble roll off, so I can get a really nice damping system going on without sacrificing impact or air, and without needing to use a really heavy planar driver. Since then, I've kind of moved in a couple of different directions. So I released a version called the Sierra Aluminum Edition last year. That was a premium. That was a more premium headphone using a polished aluminum cup. It was using 3D printed aluminum as well. And the goal there was to try and create a bit of a warmer sound, but at the same time create a different sense of sense of space and instrument presentation. Um, and that goal was largely achieved. Um, while still kind of being based off of the Sierra design. But since then, I've started to move in a slightly different direction. So, since 2023, since the beginning of this as a company, I've wanted to make a good sounding closed back headphone. The original Sierra concept was actually a closed headphone that I developed as my sort of final thesis project in college. That's actually where the headband design came from as well. But I struggle to kind of find a direction for this and, find the time to develop it for a couple of years until last year when I really started putting resources and effort into this and saying, I want to release a closed back headphone. And over that last year, I really have learned a lot in that development process. Tuning a closed headphone is just an entirely different beast. When you have an open back headphone, a lot of the sort of parameters of the sound are dictated by the driver. You have basically a speaker venting out to free air, right, on one side. On the front end, it's kind of a different story, but it's fairly straightforward to get a sound that isn't super far off from like the spec sheet of the driver that you're using. Um, when it comes to a closed headphone, though, you're dealing with an entirely different acoustic environment. If you wanted to seal and be isolating at all, you're gonna need to use sealed front pads. That means more reflections. On the back end, if you want bass, you can't just give it more air because your resonance frequency is so high that you're just going to get a ton of mid bass bloat. So I really spent a super long time getting this really interesting porting system developed to get reflex ports going so I can really dial in my bass that I wanted, dial in the mid-range balance that I wanted, and get the treble nice and damped down in a way that sounds pleasant to me. And also developing a new design language, a new industrial design. I switched to a smaller driver so I could have more space and more freedom to do what I wanted. And over the last couple of years, I've been refining that and kind of creating a new identity based on this idea of making a good portable closed back headphone. And the result of that was now the Laguna Precision headphones, which I'm going to be debuting here at CanJam SoCal in a couple weeks. So yeah.
So the Laguna Precision ones you mentioned are those that's different than the closed back or
That's the closed back, yeah.
But that is the closed back. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So the naming scheme that I'm going with basically is that the Sierra is always going to be the open backs and the Laguna is going to be the closed back. So yeah, this is the first Laguna headphone part of the new Precision series. So eventually I'll be making a kind of an open back based off this design. Although for now, the Sierra, the current reference in aluminum are the flagship open backs.
It's interesting that I wasn't aware that the aluminum had a different sound or tuning than the regular one. So sorry. How did you get the different sound again? Can you just say that one more time? Because I think I missed that part.
Oh, yeah, I didn't really touch on that too much.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The Sierra Aluminum Edition. So the thing with me is I'm kind of finicky. I don't like making different headphones that sound the same. So when it came to the aluminum, I had an opportunity to kind of refine the manufacturing process a little bit and introduce a little bit of a different damping scheme. The opening in front of the driver is different. The the resistive value of the actual damping piece in front of the driver is different. And that again creates a bit of a different sound. It kind of pushes and pulls the mids in a way where it intentionally creates a little bit more space.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, and then Gazarev, do you wanna? Or actually, before we go to you guys, or actually no, yeah, let's finish with the amps discussion, and then I'll go to Biok if he wants to weigh in. But did you want to talk about uh, Parker's amps or Bravo or anything like that?
Yeah, I borrowed one of Parker's amps like a few years ago. I think 2023, just to hear it, and because he was designing it then for some Christmas exchange or something, and it's like, okay, Parker, has all these very stout principles, so I wanted to hear if those principles translate into like sonics that I enjoy, and you know, um, at first I was obviously skeptical because we're led to believe that op amps are terrible, and no one should use op amps. We should use who knows what other technology instead. So I've been working on releasing this as like a public DIY thing for a long time, and we finally got into like a stable release with the executive. We still have the associate. The associate is like an all-in-one built-in board, full power supply and everything. And the executive is more like, what if we refined it, separated the parts that didn't need to be together, and tried to make it more exotic. And that's what I did. We're working on releasing it, as like a retail thing. 'Cause I know DIY is not for everybody, but if it is for people, the boards are available. The new one is very simple to build. I really recommend it to everyone. Uh, I mean, all the the cost of the goods is literally like funding development and getting this board shipped. I've shipped so many boards like overseas, and the shipping cost is like 95% of the price most of the time. So uh, yeah, essentially, I didn't believe in solid state. I gave it a chance. I was blown away. I I haven't heard many things that sound better. Not even considering price. Um, so with price, it's obviously, I think, the best thing in its category, in every category. Uh, Even though I am biased, obviously, but yeah, you're working on one, Smod.
Yeah, I'm definitely working on the associate, and I built out the board, but I just didn't get a chance to. I started working on metal chassis as well for it, and I just have to. I have to just wire. I just have to actually wire it to the. I have to mount it to the chassis, wire it up, and then I have to start on the power supply. So I still got a ways to go. I just have to set aside time to work on it, and I'm really looking forward to it. Because I think Parker's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing, obviously, and I'm sure his design is great. And of course, I trust you guys, and if you say it's good, then I'm very excited. But yeah, I think I have pretty much everything I need to do it. So it's just a matter of finishing it off. The board came together pretty well, but I have to mount it and get everything wired up and connected, and hopefully I did it correctly. I hope so. Yeah, the thing with for me is I love my O2 headphone. I love Ada as well. Ada has such a unique sound, like such a warm, euphonic, mid-range focused sound. But I think Ada will shine more with a little bit of neutral or neutral bright solid state amp, which I don't really have, right? Because I have my HE9, which a lot of people consider slightly warmer, and then the rest of it's all warmer tube stuff like Cayenne. My Aegis, I guess, is not that warm, but I don't know. I like the ETA stuff on solid state, so I'm really looking forward to that pairing, the Ada with Parker's amp. I think that's going to be really good. And it's there's something to be said for like a good design that you build yourself. You know what parts are going into it. You're not really cutting corners. Like you're putting good stuff into it. That I think that often yield something very good. Like my Aegis build, my Lord Gwyn amp that I made. Uh, I used all the stock parts, but then with the caps, like I was able to pick these Doolin caps that nobody else has. Now, obviously, I haven't compared my amp to another Aegis amp, but it sounds extremely good. And obviously, tubes are a factor. I just threw in whatever tubes I had, and it sounds really awesome with a lot of my headphones. So when you build something, I think that's the appeal of DIY, is that you can make something that's really amazing for not a crazy amount of money. Whereas if you had to get that same sound and go to the commercial space, you end up paying a massive amount of money. So I think that's really
Mhm.
the appealing aspect of DIY and building amps and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think, to me, that's where Associate really shines. I think to even get sound comparable to it, I mean, well, there's no sound I think is comparable, but performance, if you add other, sonic traits like warmth or slam or dark, you get something close-ish around $8,000. It's um, a little bit too much for me, but if I built the case, added all the same features, I'm sure I'd get pretty close. But overall, the Associates is like almost like textbook perfect for my requirements, like good parts, like great layout in its design, and a good cause, because um, DIYers don't get a lot of appreciation. So I'm really happy for that. I can't wait. I've had one commission for years, and I usually delay my commission to get other people the chance to build theirs, since I have to get Parker to lease me the documents and ship all the stuff to me. It's been a lot of fun in that. The other stuff we have is like the tube amps. The tube amps I think
Mm-hmm.
are really good, almost like complete opposite sonic, signature, like more inner warmth, inner detail, kind of stuff. Like similar in the fact that they're overbuilt. Uh, you know, a lot. What is it? Not primitive technologies, but like old school, like tech, like chokes and dual mono and point to point wiring. Um, I don't think for that in the US you can get even close to this. Like most tube amps that are like that are like 10-ish thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
There's differences that you get in those prices, right? Like you might get a different volume knob. Usually you don't. Uh, you might get a different power transformer. The box might be bigger. It might have, I don't know, a VU meter or something. But the tube amps, I think, are really underestimated in our lineup. If you're ever looking for a tube amp, I would recommend one. And we have an OTL coming out for a new release that we'll be demoing at Game Jam. Um,
How
Yeah, I
did
was
you
just
go?
gonna
Oh,
say
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
with
Sorry.
with Parker's amps and with the straight wire amps, like we didn't have that much of a hand in like the development of these amps. We kind of just like had conversations with Parker and Tony, and kind of like exchanged some gear, did some listening, and decided that we were kind of like aligned in terms of our principles. But we kind of just like tell them, make something you're proud of, and we'll kind of give you a platform on our site. So it's cool to kind of like uh, be in community in that way in the maker space. We're open to some stuff too. Like, I mean, I know Smod, like you and I are working on this one-off thing, but if anybody wants to be like, oh, like I'll throw you some cash, make me something cool, I'm always open to that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like that. And yeah, I strongly encourage everybody to do that because uh, the ETA guys are so great, and I trust them, and I trust Ev, and I think they're all geniuses. Uh, I want to say I don't want to leave Juan out here, so I should say that I did hear the Sierra. I did hear it at, but this was I think what two years ago, something like that, 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought it was a
Yeah,
great headphone.
Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a great headphone. I obviously I didn't hear it that much, but I encourage everybody to also patronize be a patron of Juan as well. I think he's another very smart guy, and I trust him and his headphone. And I think that metal version looks so cool. I'd like to hear that one day, and I look forward to your closed headphones too. Like are you planning on being at the next Toronto Audio Fest?
Yeah, so everything will be up at Can Jam SoCal, and I'll start taking pre-orders for the clothes back there. Um, we will try to get something to Toronto Audio Fest. So Asta, the woman who was there handling the booth last time, she's now our distributor for Canada. So we're gonna get something going there. Try to get at least an aluminum, and try to get one of the clothes backs out there as well
Nice.
by the next Toronto Audio Fest.
Nice. It's a dynamic, right? The closed is a dynamic.
Yeah, so the close is actually, like it's a totally different platform. So it's on a 35 millimeter dynamic driver. Um, it's got, it's entirely enclosure tunes. So, there's no, that one doesn't use any EQ filters or anything like that. So it has a flat impedance curve, which means you can just kind of plug it into whatever you want, whether it's a tube amp or a solid state amp, and it'll run power efficiently. And again, it's still, lightweight like all my other headphones.
Nice. That's cool, man. That's awesome. Biok, did you want to say anything? Because I see that you've yeah. So Biok, if you're gonna say anything, can you start out with like what you're interested in right now, gear wise, and what you're looking forward to, and that kind of thing, and anything else you want to say?
So right now, in terms of gear, unfortunately, I'm kind of broke, so I'm just running on a IHA 6 and a UD 501. But no, definitely the amp looks beautiful. I'm looking at the pictures of it right now. It looks amazing.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Anyone with any final thoughts or anything else? Anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
I don't know if I'm supposed to tease our next prototype or not.
Yeah.
Let's
go
just
ahead.
say-
Go ahead.
Okay.
Which one?
So, basically just ear pads. We've been working a lot on the shapes of ear pads, and you and I have already talked about this, Smod, but like learning how to position things in the enclosures and general shapes with the Ulis. We've been working to kind of like shrink down a lot of those features and some aspects of the airflow scheme and bake it all into an ear pad. So we're trying to make something with a lot of those principles in a more conventional size. So something Sennheiser size, something more normal. But yeah, that's
Conventional. Like
Yeah,
conventional
conventional.
headphone.
Yeah, but we'll have a prototype at Can Jam.
So you're
I'm
talking
excited to share it.
you're talking about taking what you've learned and designed in the Yuli and bringing that into a headphone that's a bit smaller but still an over ear. And are you talking about a dynamic, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, it'll be a more conventional size. In fact, right now we're working on something that'll be exactly the same capsule size as a HD 600 series. So you can actually roll pads to a 600 series headphone directly, or even like roll headbands if you want. And then in terms of driver technology, I've got like we're moving forward in all directions at the same time. I'll just say that.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to both of you, both of your companies. I think they're both excellent. So
Thank
that's
you.
great. Okay, well, that was an awesome show. I really appreciate it, guys. I hope we can do it more often. I know that's up to me, but I'll try to get on more often, and we can just chat and I think it's good just hanging out. It doesn't have to be formal. It can just be just a casual audio discussion. That's pretty cool. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot. I really appreciate it, and we'll hopefully do this again soon.
Yeah. See you guys at Can Jam.
Yeah, see you there.
Hell yeah.
Cheers.
Okay, later.